Every house in my hometown was decorated for Christmas. Lights in every window, trees in every living room. But I hadn't seen a single child, not playing, not laughing, not missing. And the worst part? No one else thought that was strange. The letter arrived 3 days before Christmas, folded too neatly for bad news and too heavy for good. Certified. No return address, just my name written in careful, old-fashioned strokes, like someone who still believed penmanship mattered. Inside, it said the house on Alder Lane had been left to me. My childhood home. The one my parents sold when I was 12, after that winter. The date on the letter was December 24th, last year. Postmarked locally. I remember laughing then, softly, nervously, as if the paper itself had told a joke I didn't understand. I packed anyway. Curiosity has always sounded like permission to me. Hollows Creek was still decorated when I arrived, not cheerfully, deliberately. Lights wrapped every lamppost, wreaths hung on doors that hadn't been opened in years. Inflatable Santas bowed and shuddered in the cold, their fans whining like labored breathing. Snow covered everything in a way that felt practiced, intentional. What struck me hardest wasn't the cold or the silence. It was the absence of noise where noise should have been. No shouting, no laughter, no children dragging sleds uphill, complaining all the way. The town looked like it was holding its breath. At the gas station, I asked the cashier how long the elementary school had been closed. She didn't look up from the register. "Long enough," she said, tapping the screen once too hard. I tried again, asked if families still lived here. That's when she looked at me, really looked, and said, "You're back early this year?" I told her it was my first time back in decades. Her mouth twitched. Not a smile. Something closer to a correction she decided not to make. The house on Alder Lane remembered me better than I remembered it. Same porch, same warped step that dipped under my weight like it always had. Inside, the air smelled faintly of pine cleaner and something warmer underneath. Dust, maybe, or fabric. Someone had put up a Christmas tree. Not a new one, the tree. The one my father used to curse at while untangling the lights. Beneath it sat no gifts, just space. Waiting space. I found my old bedroom exactly as I'd left it. Same wallpaper, same height marks penciled into the door frame. And on the nightstand, something that didn't belong. A photograph. Me, maybe 8 years old, standing beside another child. A boy. I knew his face before my mind allowed the name. Tommy Calder. He used to live next door. He disappeared one Christmas. Everyone said his family moved, but then they stopped saying his name. On the back of the photo, written in that same careful hand, "You finally came home." That was when I realized something was wrong. Not because I hadn't seen a child all day, but because the house I inherited still smelled like one. I went looking for the school just after sunrise, telling myself I needed air, movement, anything to shake the feeling that the house had watched me sleep. The road sloped downhill past shuttered shops and a library with a Christmas banner still hanging, its colors leached pale by time and weather. The school sat at the edge of town, squat and brick red, its windows dark but intact, as if it were only pretending to be abandoned. The playground came first. Swings, slide, monkey bars dusted in snow so clean it looked untouched, until I noticed the tracks. Not footprints, marks, shallow dents pressed into the snow beneath the swings, unevenly spaced, like something heavy had stood there and shifted its weight. I reached out and touched the slide, yanked my hand back instantly. It was warm, not sun-warmed, body-warm. There was no wind, but one swing moved anyway, slow, patient, back and forth. The chains whispered softly, a dry metallic sound that made my teeth itch. I told myself it was physics, thermal expansion, settling metal, anything with a name I could control. Then I noticed the snow directly beneath the swing was melting, revealing dark rubber tiles underneath. Something had stood there long enough to leave heat behind. I went inside the school. The air changed. Stale, but not dead. Fluorescent lights flickered in the hallway, one of them humming softly like an insect trapped in glass. A classroom door stood ajar. Inside, desks were aligned. Chalk rested beside the board. On the wall hung children's drawings, reindeer, trees, a red figure with long arms stretching too far towards stick-figure houses. The calendar on the wall was still open. December, Christmas week, no year marked. I followed a sound then, a low mechanical hum. The boiler room door was unlocked. Warm air spilled out, fogging my glasses. The heater was on, running. Someone had adjusted it recently. I could see fingerprints smudged into the dust on the dial. Too large to be a child's, too small to be a grown man's. The hum deepened suddenly, as if responding to my presence. When I stepped back outside, the swing had stopped moving. The snow beneath it had melted further, and beside it, new impressions had formed. Footprints, bare, long. The toes pressed too deeply into the ground, the heel dragging slightly behind. Not walking away, not walking toward the school. They pointed instead, back toward town, back toward Alder Lane, back toward my house. I didn't plan on staying out after dark, but Hollows Creek has a way of nudging you forward when you should be turning back. The diner on Main Street was the only place with lights on, real lights, not decorations, and the windows glowed like a promise. Inside, the air smelled of burnt coffee and fried dough, the kind of smell that sticks to your clothes and follows you home, whether you want it to or not. There were 6 people inside, all adults, all quiet. They sat apart, not together, as if closeness were something that had to be earned here. When I slid into a booth, the waitress poured coffee without asking, her hand steady but her eyes flicking toward the window every few seconds. I thanked her. She nodded once. No smile, no welcome. I told them about the playground, about the warmth, about the footprints. I tried to keep my voice casual, like someone describing bad weather instead of something that had followed him home. No one interrupted me. No one asked questions. When I finished, a man near the counter stood up and left without paying. The bell above the door rang, and every head in the diner flinched. "That's enough," the waitress instructed. She glanced toward the kitchen, then back at me. "There's one rule you should know. Just one." The others stared into their cups, into their plates, into anywhere but me. "On Christmas Eve," she continued, "you don't sleep near the fireplace." I laughed, just a breath of sound, a reflex. "That's it?" I asked. The laugh died immediately. The waitress didn't blink. Neither did the others. It was like I'd stepped on a grave and hadn't noticed yet. An old woman at the far booth finally spoke. Her voice was thin but steady, like a wire pulled tight. "My husband did," she said. "Slept right there. Chair pulled close. Said the fire kept his knees from aching." She folded her hands slowly, carefully. "In the morning, we found his boots." "Where was he?" I asked before I could stop myself. The woman lifted her eyes then, and for a moment I thought she might scream. Instead, she whispered, "In the chimney, or what was left that still fit." No one reacted. No gasps. No shock. Just acceptance. That was when we heard the bells. Not loud, not close, just enough to slip beneath the hum of the lights and the hiss of the grill. One, then another. Slow, irregular, wet somehow. The waitress turned off the diner sign without being asked. The man who'd been refilling sugar jars stopped mid-motion. Outside, snow began to fall harder. "Is that?" I questioned. "No," the waitress said. "Don't say it." The bells rang again, closer now, and for the first time I realized they weren't ringing together. They were answering each other. When I left the diner, the street was empty. Decorations blinked on and off in no particular rhythm. Somewhere far down the road, something heavy dragged across the snow, leaving a sound like fabric pulled over teeth. I walked faster, didn't look back. And behind me, very faintly, the bells kept time with my steps. I noticed the cookies just before dusk, sitting on a plate beside the front door where no welcome mat should have been. Not inside, outside. Chocolate chip, slightly burned at the edges, already stiffening in the cold. Across the street, Mrs. Harlan's house had the same plate. So did the one beyond hers. every home on Alder Lane, cookies placed like offerings, not invitations. There was no milk, not anywhere. Instead, each plate had a glass of water, filled to the brim, untouched. The water had filmed over with ice around the rim, like it had been poured too early and forgotten on purpose. I watched a man 2 houses down step outside, lift his glass, and dump it into the snow. He did it quickly, without looking around. When he went back inside, he locked the door twice. I asked him why. My voice carried farther than I meant it to. He flinched hard, nearly dropping the plate. "Water doesn't curdle," he said. Then, after a pause too long to be normal, "Milk smells wrong when it comes back." He took the cookies inside, shut the door, and turned off the porch light. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of noise, but because of heat. The house felt warmer than it should have, despite the thermostat sitting untouched. I lay in bed, listening to the walls expand and contract, wood ticking softly like knuckles being cracked in the dark. Somewhere below me, something exhaled. Slow, steady, patient. The smell came next. Sweet at first. Vanilla, sugar, something festive. Then iron crept in beneath it. Warm iron, like breath passing over old tools. I sat up, heart pounding, and that's when I heard it clearly. Breathing, not from the chimney, but from inside the walls themselves, as if the house had grown lungs overnight. In the morning, the cookies were gone. Plates still there, glasses untouched. On my own plate, deep bite marks sank into the remaining crumbs. Human, but stretched wider than a mouth should allow. Snow beneath the plate had melted into a shallow hollow, steaming faintly in the cold air. Hollow Creek had accepted the offering. Whatever came in the night had been hungry. The bells started just after sundown, when Hollow Creek slipped into that hour where Christmas lights feel less like celebration and more like surveillance. One bell at first, low, distant, almost polite. Then another answered it from somewhere closer. They didn't ring together. They conversed, trading slow, uneven notes that carried through the snow like a question no one wanted to answer. I stood at the upstairs window, curtain pulled back just enough to see without being seen. Snow fell heavier now, thick enough to swallow sound, but the bells cut through it anyway, wet, breathy, as if air were being forced through them rather than sound escaping. With each ring, the glass trembled faintly against my fingers. That's when I saw it at the edge of the street. Tall, too tall, wrapped in something dark that dragged behind it like a second shadow. It moved slowly, deliberately, as if every step required consideration. When it stepped beneath a street lamp, I saw its knees bend backward before straightening again. The bell nearest its chest fogged from the inside with each breath it took. There was no sleigh, no reindeer, just the sack. It hung from one shoulder, bulging and twitching, not violently, more like something inside was settling, adjusting, finding a more comfortable position. The thing paused at each house, bells falling silent as it leaned close to the doors, listening, not knocking, judging. It stopped at my gate. The bells rang once, sharp, pleased. I pressed my hand to the glass and felt warmth bleeding through the pane, as if a furnace had been lit directly below. The sack shifted again, and for a moment I thought I heard a muffled sigh come from inside it. When it stepped closer, I saw the footprints forming behind it in the snow, bare, deep, toes splayed unnaturally wide, heels dragging as though the ground resisted letting it move on. Each step left a faint hiss, snow evaporating instead of compressing. Heat followed it like a memory that refused to fade. The bells stopped directly beneath my window. Silence pressed in, thick enough to choke on. Then, slowly, the thing tilted its head upward. I don't know how I knew it was looking at me. I only know my name passed through the bells in a voice made of breath and rust. I stumbled back, heart hammering, and when I dared to look again, the street was empty. The snow kept falling. Decorations blinked on and off, cheerful and blind. But beneath my window, the footprints remained, pointed not away, but toward the house, toward the chimney, toward whatever part of me still remembered believing. Thanks for sipping tonight's tale with Haunted Brew. Stay close, as this tale will be continued. Don't forget to subscribe, and sleep tight if you still can.